lineups. And it's been the in most players' decks, most players' lineups for most of Season 2 of Grandmasters. So interesting to note, like you mentioned, both players are running mirrored archetypes and even very small differences within the lists. The only difference I can spot with these two players is Saiyan has 2 Violet Spellwings, 1 Wand Thief, whereas NoHandsGamer has 1 Violet Spellwing and 2 Wand Thieves. So that's it. NoHandsGamer going for a little bit more flexibility, and Saiyan going for a little bit more arcane missiles. That's the only difference.
Yeah, so not too many differences. At least we'll see perhaps in this matchup in the head-to-head. This mage will play different cards, but that's not necessarily because of any card that they put into their deck. And I don't think that 1 extra Violet Spellwing is going to make the biggest of difference over that extra Wand Thief here. Just saying, not on the coin, so that's already starting to feel like, if there's one card difference that does make a significant impact in this matchup, it's not that Violet Spellwing versus the Wand Thief, or like a Devolving Missiles versus something else. It's actually who starts on the coin.
The coin versus not the coin, yeah.
Yeah, that's the deck difference.
Well, we'll see if that makes too big of a difference. Because a lot of times the player on the coin theoretically should play a little bit slower, and you could be the aggressor, the one dictating tempo, if you're on the play. Saiyan does have an okay hand for doing that, but it's it's obviously not fantastic. He only has the Wand Maker on 2, potential for Ashman Solarian on 3. But it seems to be NoHandsGamer that's going to be dictating much of this, so we'll see if it's playing into effect here.
Yeah, NoHands not really afraid of losing that Astromancer Solarian, and it is unlikely that Saiyan would be keeping a card like Devolving Missiles early. Although, how great would it be in this position? It'd be so good. But it's okay. What's really more important is about how can they supercharge their mana giants.
You don't pick the wands.
Can they rev it up?
Yep. We sometimes we see one player being ahead for much of the Tempo Mage mirror, but all it takes is one big Sorcerer's Apprentice turn with maybe an Evocation Plate or Mana Cyclone, and a lot of Mana Giant juice being played and Mana Giants coming down. Because outside of randomly generated things, Mage just doesn't have a great way to deal with, or hard removal to deal with Giants. They have to rely on freezes to delay and hopefully get their own down to try and combat that. So this matchup can be incredibly volatile, especially once you get to the later stage of the game and the player hasn't won, and then the Solarian Primes are starting to factor in, and then the puzzle boxes that are cast from the Solarian Primes are starting to factor in, and then the extra Slayer Primes that you got from the primordial studies that you played early on in the game start to factor in. And the potions of illusions that you cast with the Solarian Primes that you played throughout the game start coming into play. And it gets pretty messy. I guess we'll leave it at that.
Yeah, it certainly can get to that stage. You've seen it many times. We saw it last time Saiyan was on camera, where he was able to do some pretty crazy things. And that Devolving Missiles hurts real bad. But he does have a second one, which we knew about.
He's good.
It's just more about the fact that you feel like it's never enough. This matchup teaches you about value, tempo, and greed, all the 3 fundamental attributes of what you're thinking about as a Hearthstone player at high levels. And right now, Saiyan is going to be behind on board. NoHands kind of evaluating if there's anything else he wants to do with this turn here. I don't think so, considering that he does have the Sorcerer's Apprentice in hand, so playing a 1-mana spell seems somewhat redundant to what he can do next turn. So Saiyan probably arguing with himself internally if there's the reason to not play Raz here. Raz looks very solid. It's a minion that can snowball on the board, but I'm not really finding a compelling reason to not play it here.
Yeah. Just getting, you know, a little bit more juice for the Mana Giant, but it just doesn't stand up to the hand of No Hands, who gets to go off, you know, many turns earlier. And this is going to be a big Mana Cyclone turn, potentially, you know, even probably a Mana Giant played onto the board as well. I guess maybe not. Depends what he gets from this Mana Cyclone. But Coin discounts it. This Arcane Missiles discounts it. The Mirror Image, if he picks up a couple of cheap spells from this Mana Cyclone, then he will be able to play this down. Even just one cheap spell, I think. Yeah, one cheap spell because the Mana Giant will cost one with any of these generated spells.
Ooh. And there it is. 0 Mana Giant cleared board.
Yep.
Saiyan just waiting. See if he can get his turn right back. Sometimes going second ain't so bad because you can collect even more value off of stuff. But there's not a lot of spells in Saiyan's hand to really make this go, and he doesn't have this Mana Cyclone yet, and did find it now. Okay. Maybe doable.
It just feels like it's not enough. I mean, he could try. I think that's the only way he can do this. I don't think he can wait another turn. I think that'd be way too greedy.
Okay.
Too much damage.
Well, that's an important pickup because it lets him kill his Source's Apprentice, and now he can freeze 2 targets before he commits to this Mana Cyclone. Can also just take it a little bit slow and hope to freeze the Giant, minimize his damage, and then try and hope that he can pick up Evocation next turn or some other spell that generates spells.
If he thinks he's in that bad of a position where he has to go for that, sure.
Time runs out on me.
Okay, he's just gonna go Mana Cycle with no Sorcerer's Apprentice. Whoa! Those are the perfect 2 when you're in this kind of position. And that's the ultimate reward for holding on to the Sorcerer's Apprentice. He's like, all right, I'm playing the Sorcerer's Apprentice to only get 1 additional spell back in my hand. Because if he played Sorcerer's Apprentice, he still would have only gotten 3 spells total. So he said, I'm gonna hold on to Sorcerer's Apprentice in case I. Those are quite poor actually. All right, Saiyan's got a chance.
Job's done.
That's right. You saw Saiyan clapping for himself earlier just now. And now we get to see some fireworks. Ray of Frost to start things off. Evocation. Couple of cheap spells, couple of expensive spells. Not really the best group here for Saiyan, but manageable. The question becomes, what does he want to play with this Giant? Giant's playable his turn. I'm looking at a secret. I'm looking at an opportunity to maybe even eliminate both of these 8-drops, but it would cost him almost the rest. He wouldn't be able to play a secret that way. If he plays Icicle, Fireball, he would be able to play his Mana Giant. I guess he floats a mana there too, which doesn't feel great.
Yeah.
Time runs out
Alright, this
on
is
me.
what you do. You play this, then you play the Mana Giant, then you Fireball. Unless he wants to play his Cram Session for 1 draw, which I don't really like, but might be important. And the reason why you want to kill this off is because you know about the second copy of Conjurer's Calling with that Twin Spell effect. So maybe that does incentivize you to do it. Okay.
Yeah, the double secret Mana Giant allows him to dump the most spells possible from his evocation, so most value. And I guess provides the most layer of protection against the Mana Giant. Because
Sort
it's
of?
multiple secrets that No Hands has to test into, right? You can't just, especially from a position like this, you can't just, you know, willy-nilly start throwing spells.
Right.
I guess you can, but you know, it feels like the game is teetering on the edge of, you know, you falling slightly behind if your opponent has 1 more blowout spell, like if they have Conjurer's Calling and you don't navigate these secrets correctly to answer this Mana Giant. How much spell damage can he have on the board this turn? He could play Raz, Lab Partner, and Astromancer. That'd be 3 spell damage that he'd have on the board, so it would do 4. So he can't answer the Mana Giant just with Raz and a trade with Mana Cyclone.
I will crush your delusions of grandeur.
But
I will crush your delusions of grandeur.
All right, Astromancer Solarian gets copied. So I guess Saiyan does get his Solarian Prime back in the deck. But what's scary is that there's actually a lot of damage on the board right now. Saiyan might end up just dying. And Janice Barov is nice, but not really great into Raz.
I will crush
yeah,
your
it's
delusions.
like
Such
he's got to
raw
go
card.
card position here. Find some stall. Also could find Conjurer's Calling, which could get like Batterhead or something crazy.
Okay, One Thief can give him a couple of nice cards and pickups, like a little bit of light AoE, maybe some freeze. Because I think maybe Saiyan's in that mode already where he has to consider stalling the game until Puzzle Box. Ends up going for another cram session here, just hoping they can pick up tools from his deck, not find it. So now I think it is One Thief.
Time runs out on me.
And I think that is death here.
Yeah.
Just doesn't actually have a way to stop it. He could do Tome of Intellect, but he doesn't have any mana left.
You win this.
Just dead on board. Saiyan concedes.
it was so close.
NoHands gets that first win.
Yeah, and even though Saiyan had a pretty big swing turn, he got some good cards from the Mana Cyclone, like the hold on the Sorcerer Apprentice. The Evocation didn't get him enough disruption / removal, and the Puzzle Box was just way too slow given how far he was behind at that point in the game. So big win in the mirror match for No Hands, because when you're running mirrored lineups and you're finding wins in just straight up archetype mirrors, just gives you such a leg up over the course of the rest of the series, given every matchup can be considered even like that when you look at it. So nicely done.
Yep, that's right. So the mirror does end up going towards NoHandsGamer. He's going to get that important Game 1 win. But we got a lot more Hearthstone to play today. We're just getting started. So we're going to take a few minutes and get set. And when we come back, we're going to get into game number 2 here between Saiyan and NoHandsGamer. We'll be right back.
Hearthstone Grandmasters is brought to you by T-Mobile. Switch today and rank up to America's largest 5G network. T-Mobile.
벌써 어려운데? 3가지 단어로요?
3가지라고 하니까 좀 애매한 것 같네.
Hearthstone player, caster, fan.
穏やか、楽、丸いって感じですかね。
用3个词形容我的话是很努力，然后认真工作，然后很爱玩遊戲。
自分を3つの言葉で表すなら、うまい、オタク、雑。
스트리머, 하스톤 게이머, 뭐 30대 게이머 이렇게 할게요.
저를 3단어로 표현하면은 슈퍼, very cute, maybe.
Welcome back, everyone, to Hearthstone Grandmasters for the Americas. We are in the middle of a series between Just Saiyan and NoHandsGamer. Going to game number 2, we did have that Mage Mirror completed, and we're going to see if Saiyan can make that comeback. NoHands, a very important moment of his initial stage here as being a Grandmaster. We've had some players who stepped into the Grandmaster system and get immediately relegated. We've had some new Grandmasters step into the system and do well. And it seemed like he's on the cusp of really being one of those breakout performers in his first season being in GM. If he can secure these next couple of games, he will be in that playoff contention. So NoHands going to step up with Seeker Rogue going to game number 2. And Seeker Rogue is going to be one of those decks, as we mentioned at the top of the show, but for people who are kind of just piling in right now, Seeker Rogue is one of those big decks to keep an eye out for this week.
Yeah, and NoHands is running a little bit of a different version of it than a lot of the players we're seeing in Americas this week. He's running, I'd call it a little more aggressive. It has Intrepid Initiates, it has Double Eviscerate, and it runs Ambushes. Which, a lot of the Seeker Rogue decks that we're seeing are very lean and run like Dragon Hordes, Vendettas, and Underbelly Fences. No Eviscerates, no Ambushes, just Dirty Tricks and Plagiarizes. So a little bit of a different take on the deck. I've run this one a few times on ladder, and it is quite threatening because, especially in like mirror matchups or against some slower decks, it can get the ball rolling very quickly with so many different 1-drops and the Intrepid Initiates being very threatening when played as a 1-drop. So just kind of, interesting things to note as we look forward in the series.
Very much so. As we already see the early gameplay, looks like a little bit of a spectator mishap there, but looks like I was thinking you're going to play Blackjack Center on 1. You crazy. Pharaoh Cat, of course, is much better and does give NoHandsGamer even more plays going into the next turn. 1 Child Jewel Hanar, and this hand looks excellent to me from NoHand's side.
You should start for Sam too. Lab partner into Cram Session. That's what you want to see. Fortunately, doesn't have the coin, doesn't have Source's Apprentice to really capitalize on the additional stuff that he has in his hand. That just means he's like 1 card away from kind of the nuts, I suppose. Does need some time to set it up, though. That's the big thing about a hand like this one.
Well, turn 2 is pretty important here. So a lot of times I feel tempted just to play the dirty tricks on 2 because I know Mage loves to play secret or just spells in general. But it doesn't really develop the board, and I am concerned about his ability to deal with, say, a Chenvala on 3. NoHands with the One Thief on 3 of Mage's most powerful cards.
Whoa, no!
You want the puzzle box?
Yeah. I guess in NoHand's mind, he's going to keep tempo for a lot of this game, and if he can stick Jandis on a board that he's kind of ahead in, Conjurer's Calling is going to be pretty huge. But I was going to say that's a lot of that's many turns from now with a dead card sitting in his hand. But my argument was against Puzzle Box, and that's like the ultimate dead card that's going to sit in your hand for many, many, many turns. So yeah, whatever.
Okay, Ambush is
3 mana 5/4.
But you really want to play Generous Mummy into a deck that really loves to get mana discounts?
Yeah, I mean, he's already going to get discounts anyway. What's a little bit more? Generous Mummy is
it's a grief. I've played Generous Mummy a couple of times in matchups where I'm just like, it really shouldn't be that big of a deal, and it turns out it is even bigger of a deal than I originally thought. I'm like, it's pretty bad here, deal. And I didn't realize that it was so bad that I guaranteed through the game at that.
All right. Well, unfortunately, going with Jandis here means that he gets to hand over a turn over to Just Saiyan where he gets free reign with a Shenvala on board. which probably not the best idea of things to do. So instead, gonna go ahead and play Ambush and Eviscerate. This will set up nicely in case Saiyan wants to go for like a Raz or a Janus of his own, because he has the Ambush that's gonna proc.
Right into my trap.
So kind of waiting for a go card here. Not a go kart, commonly confused with go card, but a go card like Sorcerer's Apprentice, or in a couple turns Evocation could fit that bill as well. Just something that lets him accelerate this Mana Giant, let him get it on the board quicker.
Let's make something.
Right, and or get value out of this Mana Cyclone that's in hand. Because right now he doesn't really have much to do, and the board he has to spend these cheap cards that are in his hand to try and fight off pressure from No Hands. That's the less fodder he's going to have once Sorcerer's Apprentice is going to be drawn, or for this Mana Cyclone that's already in hand. But at the moment, No Hands is kind of running away with this game, so I feel like Saiyan's kind of on a clock to draw one of those big things, or else she's just going to get overrun. Especially there's a Conjurer's Calling in hand that No Hands picked, kind of planned ahead to this Janus turn, where he's like, okay, if I'm ahead on board, I'm likely to stay ahead. If Janus comes down, I'm also very likely to be able to have a minion stick. Woof, wow, that's a weird outcome with 6 minions on board.
Yeah, weird is one way to put it. Bad was another way to say it. I would think that was a very bad outcome for Saiyan. Playing the arcane missiles.
Looking at it from just no skin in this game whatsoever. These players don't have names or faces. It is very weird. But yes, this is a Grandmasters game with real implications. That is a very bad outcome for Saiyan. You're right.
Time runs out on me.
Flame Ward does look like the best pick here, and probably an instant snap. I guess the issue is, would Saiyan be entirely too obvious if he played Flame Orb and then used the Arcane Breath? He is going to go for it instead. And I actually do like this, because that way, no matter how the attack sequencing goes, Saiyan should be able to clear it off with Arcane Breath afterwards when No Hands triggers the Flame Ward. No Hands, of course, does have to test for a couple other spells first. Near Entity, Counterspell, perhaps a Netherwind Portal.
Give me a quest.
Oh my. So the questing into the Conjurer's Calling, I like it. And this puts him in a situation that's tough for No Hands, and might even be incentivized to not attack. He saw no Spellbender, no Counterspell, no Mirror Entity. So it's something attacking the face related, which is, and no Netherwind Portal. So he's very much thinking about Flame Ward, choose to pass, Bless Up. I like it. Saiyan does find the Firebrand, which might be really helpful here.
Yeah. So he can fit in, if he really wants, he can fit in a Mana Cyclone here as well, but it's only for 2 spells. And I wonder what you go for here first. If you Firebrand and then like Arcane Breath to try and take off like the maximum amount of stuff on board, and then like freeze Mana Cyclone. In this case, he could also just go like a ping to bring the 5/4 down to 3 health, and then a freeze on the questing adventure. All right, doesn't go for the ping. Wants to get the Mana Cyclone down since he used all of his cheap spells anyway, and he'll be able to ping next turn to take it off. He'll just take the 5 additional damage.
I think No Hands will get the confirmation here. It is Flame Ward. He can't not attack for the rest of the game. That is not a path to victory, but deciphering when to attack is the key. And now we get to see this prep Conjurer's Calling. I like it. Excellent use of some of these tempo tools from Rogue to really get ahead on board, and now Saiyan's got bigger problems.
Yep.
And they keep getting bigger. You know what they say, TJ, more minions, more problems.
Is that what they say?
Yes. Especially when you're at 10 life staring at a, a board this big. And Evolving Missiles, I mean, there's a lot of ways that this could turn out really, really positive for Saiyan. But ultimately, he just needs that Devolving Missiles to hit that questing adventure. Nice.
Oh, well, he got a 2-drop.
Going for the Doomsayer.
This is going to be the time. That's a Doomsayer. Nope,
No.
never seen it. Doesn't exist. Never seen it.
Not sure what this card you're talking about is. Doomsayer? Never even seen it.
No. Honestly, I don't think it's possible. I don't think you can get Doomsayer from Conjurers calling your opponent's minion.
It's just removed from the pool. Like, Dragon Queen Alexstrasza can't get Dragon Queen Alexstrasza anymore, right?
Yeah. It's like Conjurer's Calling was coded as a Doomsayer. So it can't get itself. That's what it feels like. No, nobody's yet to send me like a screenshot of them or a GIF, I guess, of them Conjurers calling their opponent's minion and getting a Doomsayer. I'm waiting for it to happen.
Yeah.
I'm convinced it just can't because we always talk about it as an out and it just doesn't happen.
Yeah,
on to the next game, I suppose.
On to the next game. It's been pretty one-sided games today so far. We saw the first series where Masano just kind of bowled over Language Hacker, and then now we have NoHandsGamer kind of, bowling over Saiyan in the first couple of games here. NoHands getting turned to his Control Priest, going to game number 3. And what does Saiyan choose to line up here? He could end up choosing his Mage. Saiyan, of course, has his own Rogue, which has been a class that we're looking at to be used to target Priest.
The light shall bring victory.
Yep. I feel like that matchup is starting to become more and more, Priest favored as the Priests start getting more lean and start cutting things that aren't quite as good against Rogues. But those matchups can get long and grueling and quite weird at times as well. Speaking of long and grueling and quite weird sometimes, this matchup also feels very similar. The Priest versus Mage, where Mage has a good amount of pressure options, a lot of value options, but a lot of generate a bunch of random spells options as well, which can get very weird for the Priest to try and play around a certain range of things. Sometimes you're playing around face damage when your opponent has minion generation. Sometimes you're playing around minion generation when your opponent has face damage. That's what I'm talking about when I talk about how this matchup can get really weird. Now, Saiyan doesn't have any techs that specifically help him against Priest. He doesn't have Arcane Antinitis. He does, however, have the Conjurer's Calling naturally in his deck, which we've come to assume as standard, but hasn't always been standard and isn't always standard even in lists that some players are playing today. A weird start for Saiyan, though. Lab partner.
Yeah, I was looking at it and just thinking how Saiyan
double
realistically... Yeah, there's a pan out here where he actually has no plays till like turn 4.
Yeah.
I guess the good news is that it's all uphill from here. Like, his hand can only improve. Nothing really much going on this turn here. No hands with a renew. The turn 1 renew is actually interesting and maybe something to think about there. That no hands devalues that 1 mana spell for that front-loaded heal, and instead opts for having utility spells that he think might be more important in the game, like say having a Shadow Word Pain on 2, to maybe like eliminate something that he doesn't want to take too much damage early on if his opponent plays a Ashman's. So it's a very interesting move on turn 1 that we don't usually see, because people are always busy thinking about the 3 heal value off of Renew instead of just thinking about the idea that you can discover a spell with some added benefits.
Yeah, it is. It is kind of interesting. I myself am also in learning Control Priest over the past couple weeks, I suppose, since players started taking out Galakron and more control. Oh, nailed it! As he nails it, I've also kind of tunneled on if my cards can heal, I need to heal, that kind of thing. So. Well, that's a backbreaker. And this is on average, incredibly low value. Even
What? Evolving missiles. Ah. Now imagine he was able to hold on to that Chinvala. He would actually be able to summon that 5/5. Oh! Murgurgle.
Okay, that's some... Elemental Allies is funny also because it means that, he will have a form of card draw sooner rather than later because he can play Mana Giant into Mana Giant or alternatively like Mana Giant into Mana Cyclone to be able to draw those spells from his deck. So that ended up being a pretty high value evocation with only 3 mana remaining, which is not always the case. Madame Lazul, No Hands gets some good information here, knows that there's a Mana Giant. Wow. This Mana Giant costs the same as Saiyans.
Oh yeah, I wasn't really even thinking about how many cards he's been playing out of his deck, but he's got a little bit of that discount for the Mana Giant. I anticipate that to be a lot lower. Saiyan picked up the Magic Trick here. Still no Source of Premise to really tie this hand together.
Yeah.
Thinking about how he can utilize the rest of his mana this turn. Seems like Magic Trick into Arcane Explosion with the spell damage. What?
Yeah. It's good for the board, and he kind of has to do it, but the problem still persists here with not having any way to follow up on a Mana Giant, not having any way to follow up on a Mana Cyclone. So yeah, he's just going to take the the small amount of value and be able to Mana Cyclone back for just 2 spells. All right, it's Brain Freeze, Frost Nova. Those are good stalling tools. Murgurgle Prime drawn right away. And he can get another one.
Murgurgle, he finds another one. Murloc Priest.
You don't pick the one, silly.
And he can even give it Rush with the Goblin Lackey. Bless you. And there's going to be a lot of pressure coming in here because Saiyan chose to favor that card generation, which, looks like it's not too bad to have, but it does end up leaving more power onto the board. It is annoying for Mage. While, yes, you do have access to a hero power, it costs you 2 mana every turn to do it, which does hamstring some of the plays that you want to build. Saiyan going to go for 1 Giant here. No hands.
We'll get the Elemental Allies.
Yeah.
And we'll be able to ping off. I guess Frost Nova is such a big, situational good stall tool later on in the game that you don't want to use that, but he could have gone just Frost Nova Mana Giant that turn. Frost Nova Giant Generator, he would have drawn 3 spells. He wouldn't have had to react. He could fish for a board-wide removal next turn with the spells that he drew. Just something to think about. Looks like he just wanted to make sure that he had consistent ways to answer the board, so I don't blame him for that.
Yeah, how do you remove this Giant in an efficient way? Because we know that he can, but Is it worth tossing in all these cards like Wild Pyromancer and the Apotheosis in order to do that? No Dragon for the Cleric of Scales to get a specific spell from his deck.
Quickly.
Could use Madame Lazul, but that is banking on the mage to have a card in their hand to deal with it. Oh, this does not feel good. Clearing off part of your own board to clear off their board.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, this one mana giant applies so much pressure that No Hands has destroyed his own board and lets himself vulnerable to get swept up again.
Wow. I'm saying I'm incredibly happy about that. That is a brutal way to have to deal with that. But I don't think No Hands is worried because he has, still so much powerful stuff left to do. I mean, he can get his mana giant free quite quickly here. The Murgur, the Radiance, the Murgurgle, all this stuff didn't start. Oh, whoa! Unless he just dies.
I mean, the Grom puts him on a clock. Also, a minion that's hard to deal with when you don't have any hard target removal like Time Rip and those control Galakron freezes.
Yeah, he's likely to find a freeze here, though. Nope, didn't find it.
Raz would activate Grom. So that's off the table. Not that he could even play it this turn.
Mind Vision, alright, this could get freeze. Ray of Frost, there it is. Nope.
Hey, Raz finds a way anyways. And he heals up and plays his own free mana giant.
Alright. Now I feel like it's time to push the tempo a little bit, if I'm saying.
So he has Raz and the lab partner and can even use the Ray of Frost onto that giant and push the tempo. The issue is I really want to squeeze in a hero power on my Grom somehow this turn. So if there's a way we can do that without having to...
I like another Conjurer's Calling here, actually. Because you get to so much value to this Batterhead. And then you can Conjurer's Calling, and then react to that.
Like
you get Terralion, you can just deal with the Mana Giant that way.
Okay.
Interesting.
Okay. So this is really big. I think at this point you feel like you're ahead enough that you might want to consider what are some ways that your opponent can come back. And pretty much that's just Soul Mirror. Even then, Soul Mirror leaves you with minions on the board, so you're not necessarily that upset about it. No Hands is
still no dragon. But he's got to get bailed out here.
Time to find 4 Murloc Chargers or Rushers.
Or Rushers. How many does he get?
1. Just
dead.
1.
You have best.
All right, looks like we're going to game number 4. Priest gets blown out by that mage turn that's able to get 2 much stats with the Conjurer's Calling, which does lead Saiyan into a pretty good spot, and No Hands did not have the removal ready to go. So that moves us into the next game here, where Saiyan could either go to his Rogue or his own Priest. We have seen Priest mirrors earlier today, and they still are as grindy as people remember them, but we don't have the Galakron engine to really give them infinite value off of that. So we can talk about it a little more if we do end up seeing it, but if we do end up getting to that point in game number 4 or 5, we could be in for a long run.
It's still, gets to the point where it can be silly amounts of value because, you have Cobalt Spellkins and double setting Veil Weavers and things like that. But we will get to see the Rogue first. And as I mentioned earlier, Saiyan playing a little different version. He's playing Cult Neophytes along with the Vendetta Dragon Horde package. He also has 1 Ambush, 1 Plagiarize, plus the 2 Dirty Tricks. So, just a little bit, different variations here and there. Some players deciding for Cold Neophyte, some players deciding on the
Escape my fury.
Oh my gosh, I was just playing with this card and my mind is drawing a blank. The 2-mana 3/4 with Rush, that if you have a or card from another class. I literally have played this card 100 times in the past couple days. And I'm drawing a blank, whatever. But just a little bit a different style. Whereas Cold Neophyte is more against the slower decks that rely on reacting to what you're doing. Where you want to protect the board or protect an important minion or card by playing Cold Neophyte alongside it. So it allows for those bigger swings, but less potential tempo. I don't think this is a matchup in particular where Cold Neophyte is super good because the spells that you're trying to block specifically don't come out till much later. Whereas, block a Soul Mirror going into 7. Well, that's not a card you're keeping in your mulligan if that's the case. And, Saiyan pick keeps Shadow Jewel, Hernard, Dirty Tricks, and Vendetta. Shadow Jewel, Hernard plus Dirty Tricks guarantees activates Vendetta. So I was just going to go ahead and coin it out and get that train rolling.
Yeah, I like it. Try to get that tempo now while you can and really punish Priest for not being able to respond to it early on, which No Hands does not have. Seems like No Hands with no dragons, making these Clerical Scales be one of the worst cards you can put in your deck. Without this, a 1-mana 1/1 do nothing off the battle cry is pretty atrocious, to say the least. And I think No Hands, by playing this, is actually messing with Saiyan a little. He's like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Why'd you play this? What if I just dagger and kill this 1/1? Which is almost exactly what No Hands wants in a way. He does not want Saiyan to really have to collect that value off the secret. And if he does, then he's able to trade it in Holy Smites. This is actually a fairly clever move by No Hands.
Yeah, I like this actually. Because otherwise there's just absolutely no chance that he kills the Shadow Jewel Hanar next turn. So giving himself the chance to, if Saiyan does play secret here, but Saiyan's like, there's no reason for me to play a secret. If you're just going to give me a free kill on a 1/1, sure, well, I'll just take it.
Right. I mean, Saiyan got to kill a card in NoHandsGamer's deck for basically free. It took 1 health to do it. No Hands finds a Vendetta, which is, I mean, that's just playable now, and you can kill Hanar now. He really thought for a brief second about maybe having something else, but this is just too good to pass up. Wow.
Look at Saiyan, he's like, okay. Yeah. Because Vendetta is a rogue card, all the priest cards are considered cards from another class. So Vendetta is always active unless you're also holding just all rogue cards.
I wonder.
And I don't think Saiyan was like, all right, that's the way that punishes me. He took a long, hard look at the deck and said there are very specific ways that he punished for this play. The first being Wild Pyromancer Holy Smite. The second being Madame Lazul into Vendetta. Madame Lazul having to have that and then also being offered Vendetta. And so that's a pretty big punish for Saiyan for not playing the secret, because that card alone can do a lot of work against Priest, because on an empty board they struggle to deal with it, especially if you have some secrets to protect it. But also just nice on No Hands to play that 1/1, enticing Saiyan to dagger up to try and protect the Shadow Jewel Hanar, and then being rewarded with a kill on it the following turn.
I mean, but all things considering, this is still, Rogue being in the driver's seat. It's just that Priest is putting a lot of bumps in the road.
Yep.
Along the way. Ooh, okay. Banner Smosh is fun. I don't know if it ends up being something that's super impactful, right? Because we don't know what it's going to transform into, but it could transform into anything.
Yeah. Honestly, like, if I were to say, what would be one of the best cards that Banner Smosh can transform it to, I would say Murzon. He was offered Murzon. He wants something better. Murzon is sick. Like, I don't think you can ask for much more than Murzon. but I guess he just wants to be able to have options as to when to play this Banner Smosh. There are some better things, like very fringe case scenarios, better things than Murzon. Murzon is like most straight up valuable in a long term game, but Banner Smosh has, I guess, higher upside because you can get like Lady Liadrin, which we've seen the power of that not only in Americas last week, but also in Europe earlier today with Bunny Hopper. Even though he lost that game was insane. But we'll see. Banner Smosh is interesting to say the least.
Smosh him.
What's it gonna be?
Malicos, but there's no dragon. That would have been sick.
It would have been. I mean, a lot of the legendaries that he's going to transform into are just kind of.
It actually would have been pretty bad because on NoHandsGamer has the Cabal Shadow Priest on curve, so perhaps a blessing in disguise. Speaking of the blessings, NoHandsGamer does have the Wave of Apathy in a hand, so he does have a default guaranteed way to steal any minion with the Cabal Shadow Priest in the coming turns. Shotbot, probably one of the better pickups. Colossus of the Moon.
The best pickup.
Well, I would say against one class that Colossus of the Moon tends to be better against. It feels like a class like Priest because Soul Mirror and whatnot doesn't exactly kill it off.
But it does give them one.
It does give them one. That's true. I guess because of Soul. Yeah.
Actually,
because then they can just steal it with.
Yeah.
Right, but like, are they gonna wait until turn 10 to do that? I guess it's like the surprise factor in it. I just feel like against every other class, Colossus of the Moon is like unplayable, but against like Warrior and Priest, it feels like it's slightly playable.
That is a disciplinarian Ganling. Also not great in this situation. Well, I mean, I say that, but I feel like Banner Smosh has too high of an upside to just play it on a disciplinary Ganling.
Right.
Saiyan
does have these cult neophytes. I think I like cult neophyte. I think I like playing both of them. I don't want Cabal Shadow Priest to steal the Shotbot either, though, because that's the only reason why. Shotbot's a better proactive play for sure, and he can even layer his Cult Neophytes over 2 turns. I can play Cult Neophyte this turn, then Cult Neophyte next turn, and just make NoHandsGamer really disincentivized to play a lot of his spells. But I think I just like the double Cult Neophyte in this position. It maximizes his power, disables cards like Cabal Shadow Priest from having a ton of relevance here. I mean, he is not accounting for this, though. Twin Tyrant.
No. Oh, man. Twin Tyrant. If it hits both Cold Neophytes.
Wow. Right, hits a 1-1. Okay. So about the average outcome.
Yeah.
Chenvala. He could use the Blackjack Center on this Twin Tyrant and make it cost 9, which is really expensive. And then go for the Wand Thief.
Pyroblast!
Alright. Is he... No, wait, never mind. Chenvala doesn't stay after this turn.
Maybe more realistically, it's a Pexus Blast. That lets you answer a minion next turn, which right now, outside of Banner Smosh giving you a good legendary, is a dead turn. Pyroblast it is!
Yep.
Excuse me!
I mean, a Pectus Blast and Pyroblast per mana spent deals around the same damage, just that Pyroblast keeps going all the way to 10.
Yeah.
But I
just
like
really
it.
worried about his next turn, right? Unless, well, I guess a spell is most likely to be played here, which means he gets the dirty tricks.
Right.
And maybe he just has a lot of faith in his Banner Smosh to come up big next turn. I mean, I'm still waiting on, like, Saiyan to be rewarded for this Banner Smosh pick when it feels like Murzon would... Going to his next turn, if, like, No Hands plays a Murzon, playing a Murzon right back and just getting 2 8/8s. Seems good. That seems real good. We'll see, though. We'll see.
You think this is your time? It is mine.
All right, well, Murzon does end up coming down here, but remember, doesn't get those battle cries. Just gets minions onto the board. And he's really hoping that Saiyan can't press in too much for a punish here. Ooh, Alar. Janda's Bear Off comes into the hand. Looks like Saiyan can't activate that Dirty Tricks anyways, so... How do you want to deal with this? You can full trade into the Murzon. You're at 19, so you don't feel exactly safe against this. Full trades does leave you enough board space to play the Jandis. Right now, part of another issue is that he has 5 minions on the board here, and Jandis doesn't really give him the ability to summon 2 5-drops. And a large feels very underwhelming, so it looks like he's going to go for this first. Looking for maybe a Rusher. Finds Tundra Rhino. And Mozaki.
This Pyroblast can get beefed up.
I guess so. Oh, yeah? Oh, it's going to be like that, huh? All right.
If he trades with the Tundra Rhino, it means he's giving up which of the targets is the Mirage, the illusion.
Right.
And he has a Pyroblast in hand, so I don't want to trade. I just want to keep pushing damage and force No Hands to be the one to start making these trades.
Yeah, agreed. And now No Hands in a slightly awkward position, but still entirely manageable if he ends up trading his board and playing Soul Mirror. Should end up being okay. Does have to make a little bit of board space, though, because of the way Soul Mirror summons off the order of the board, so can't be playing it immediately. He's gonna just use his Renew. Oh, okay, maybe Holy Nova or Breath of the Infinite.
Oh, Holy Nova is just sick here. He clears off like everything.
Ooh, I like
yeah,
it.
get the Mizaki.
Oh, that's huge. And that's gonna probably just be it here for Saiyan, unless he's able to draw something really impactful. Is that a Ebon Lock?
Yeah.
Can Wrath it Ebon Lock? So his demons cost 1 less. Sick. Oh no. He draws the Blackjack's on it with no secret. He can prep.
I wonder.
Pyroblast and
Pyro.
Murazond. Oh my gosh.
And then Vendetta, the 2/2. Giving him 2 cards.
I mean, desperate times calls for desperate situations. And that's what he has to do. Oh! Never mind, Saiyan found the lethal. Pyroblast yourself, and then concede. NoHandsGamer elated. That's a Game 4 victory. That is another win for NoHandsGamer, who's got his 4th win now and puts himself in that playoff position. And, job well done. So, first season here for NoHandsGamer, put himself in that playoff spot. We always look for some of that new blood to really challenge some of the old guard, and you can see exactly that. NoHandsGamer, what a heck of a first season here.
Yeah, just very nicely done. Hearing him talk about his mindset, looking at the game differently than a lot of the America's Grandmasters are. Looking at it as like a true, professional competition, and making his own life and his own schedule, building that kind of around his matches each week. That's just really cool to hear, and obviously it's paying off because we don't see very many new grandmasters come in and have those types of performances. So locking himself into the playoffs, looking good doing it. Well, I'm excited to watch him going forward into playoff week next week. But for Saiyan, he's got one more match left, and right now, especially with Monsanto picking up a win and going up to 3 wins, he's got to be a little bit worried about heading down to that relegation bracket. Bottom 2 spots from Division A will fight against each other. The loser going up against the other seeds from Division B in the relegation bracket. So, and in that game, you kind of got to question, like, is Bandersmosh actually the pick in that scenario? Murzon could have been a card that really bailed him out and gave him a second life. So
Yeah.
even though Bandersmosh got a lot of potential, it's a fun card. Sure. Is that really what's going to win you the game more often when push comes to shove? So we'll see. Zayn's got one more match, and it's kind of coming down to a must-win later in the weekend.
Yeah, now that we've seen it play out, I